Welcome to ChamberTalk, the podcast where we explore the stories and insights of leaders from various sectors who are making a difference in our community. I'm your host, Andrew Gregson, and today we have the pleasure of speaking to the Honorable Tammy Kim, current City of Irvine Council member and also Mayor candidate. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So, Tammy, we've bumped into each other so many different times because all our groups all bang into each other, so I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. I wanted to start off with a little bit of let people know your background a little. So if you don't mind sharing part of your incredible story as coming over here and making a difference. You came here as an infant, right?
I did. So I was born in Korea, came here as an infant to the United States, and really just growing up in the Midwest, in the East Coast, raised my parents. My mom was a seamstress. My dad was a day laborer, and they were able to save up for a small business. And they, put us through school, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no real means of health insurance or retirement savings. So really, that impacted a lot of my worldview and why I do a lot of what I do today, especially for our Asian American immigrants and those who don't speak English very well, those who are not acclimated, and those who have to have a small business in order to survive.
I think that's a very true American story, isn't it? Where your mum and dad came over here, they started working and they built a business. If you don't mind me asking, what type of business did they go into?
They had a small liquor store.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah, in Baltimore. And so, it wasn't the best of all environments. And it was really around even though we were in the East Coast during the LA uprising.
Oh. And
just making sure, one of the things that I was worried about was the fact that the social unrest would spread to the East Coast, because we were sort of feeling a lot of the similar sentiments, like all across the United States. And it really mounted in Los Angeles, and really making sure that it didn't spread in the East Coast. About 8 years later, it did spread out to the East Coast because there was another sort of social unrest that impacted. But my parents were
long gone by then?
Yeah, gone by that time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You never hear about that, do you? But it's true, isn't it? Something happens somewhere else, it spreads all over, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you've raised your son in Irvine for some time now, right? He's a grown young lad now, grown young man. Being a single mum, how do you think that's influenced some of the work that you've done on city council and why you want to be the mayor of the city? Yeah,
so really it was kind of a funny story because as a single mom, I had a successful corporate career. I became a corporate executive working in technology, for technology companies and venture-backed startups. And raising my son in Irvine, I came to Irvine because I wanted my son to have access to opportunities, access to a great environment, good schools, safe environment. And really growing up as a single mom, I never thought about actually running for office. And it really wasn't until I saw Katie Porter, who is sort of the first outed single mom politician, that I ever actually thought it was even possible. And having that courage to run for office as a single working mom and then having been elected, really allows me to see things. Like, I understand the difficulties that parents face. I understand the difficulties and how hard it is to make sure that you have your access and your piece of the American dream, and making sure that you can provide for a good quality of life for your children, and how hard that is. And just coming from it from that perspective, because a lot of people think everyone in Irvine is doing really well. Yeah. And that's what everyone thinks. You come here to North County and you look at Irvine, And there's the perception that everyone does well in Irvine, and that's not necessarily the case.
Sure.
And because of that experience really allowed me to see and to see things and to have empathy and compassion to figure out how can we make things better, such as providing for more funding for childcare, for example, and after-school care.
Yeah.
And that is why I sit on the Irvine Childcare Project, because these are the kids that that need the most help, because most of them do have single parents.
Sure.
Or working parents.
Yeah.
And that need Rainbow Rising, which is the program that is in our elementary schools, and they need access to that. They
definitely do, and I definitely understand the struggles of when you're both parents with when you've got young kids, is the school system seems to be very finishes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then you got to rush over, grab your kid, take it to after school programs and things like that. And it's very difficult if you've got a job.
It is.
And if you've got a job, you need to work to be able to live in somewhere nice like Irvine, right? So
yes. No, absolutely. And again, it's even when you're dual income, both parents are working, and you have at least, you're arranging like who's going to pick up Joey today, and you kind of go back and forth and try to work with schedules, and then combine that with being single, because then every day is your day.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it's true. It's very true. It's very true. So you originally were elected to the City of Irvine Council in 2020. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I competed against 14 candidates that year.
14.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! And you had like the highest vote count ever, I believe, or on record. What do you think, or what do you believe resonated with the residents to give you such a high count?
Yeah, so just to take a little step back, one of the things I did is I started a nonprofit organization in Irvine. And I became an accidental nonprofit executive director. And it was something that I started when I was working in corporate, founded a nonprofit organization, and that became my full-time job. Mm-hmm. And the nonprofit Korean American Center, which is, we combined with another organization called Korean Community Services, which is here in North County, actually. Yes, becoming the largest social service organization serving the Asian American, Korean American community. And that really, that's where I really saw the underserved needs within Irvine, and knowing that there were a lot of people who are struggling. So we worked a lot with seniors, a lot with youth, on a variety of different programs, and working with other community organizations in Irvine, especially when it came to the census, making sure that all Irvine residents were counted, especially those whose English is not their first language. And I think because of that work, working with so many different communities, I was also chair of the Irvine Global Village Festival. I'm not chair. I was chair of the Language Access Committee for the Register of Voters. I was also on the steering committee for the Global Village Festival. So I just really intersected and interfaced a lot with so many different community members. And I think that is why I won with such a huge number, because I think that there's an audience that a lot of politicians speak to. But I was working in interface with a completely different audience group that is not really well versed in politics,
sure,
is not part of the mainstream, but and also coupled with being involved with in the mainstream political space as well. So I think when you kind of combine the two, I think that's where I had such a strong showing. So. Now
you'd mentioned that obviously you'd started this nonprofit, and but before that you had a very sort of successful career. You mind sharing a little bit about what you actually used to do?
Yes, so I was in global talent acquisition. That was my specialty. That was my forte, and I specifically worked with software companies. I mean, if you want to be really super niche about it. So I would help hire for software companies, but not only did the hiring, I actually would start their global talent acquisition department.
Oh, wow.
So I worked with some of the largest companies in the world. So I was vice president of global talent acquisitions for a company called CA Technologies, which is now part of Broadcom. I started at VMware, which is another big technology company. EMC, which is now Dell, Meraki, which is now Cisco. And so a lot of these which at the time were smaller companies that became large enterprise companies. And I basically would start their hiring practice. VMware, under my leadership, became one of the fastest growing software companies in history at the time.
Wow.
And so this was a type of rapid growth that I was used to in helping build out that infrastructure to help companies retain and recruit the best talent.
And how do you feel, because I could imagine it has, but how do you feel that your corporate knowledge feeds into your sort of political career in a way?
Well, I think it's because I'm the only person on the city council that actually has any corporate experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so most politicians, especially in city council, a lot of them are attorneys and they do sort of other stuff, or even nonprofit leaders. They do a variety of different things, but it's very rare that they come from a corporate background.
Oh.
And so because I have that, especially in technology, I have an understanding of what companies are looking for when they decide to set up shop in any respective location.
Well, a city's like running a big company, isn't it?
Exactly. And so, that's the skill set that I, brought to the table. And that was also something that, one of the things and frustrations that I had in Irvine, because with my job, I had to travel a lot. So I went up to Silicon Valley a lot. So I would know who was on the cusp of when you get funding and you need to do hiring, like where companies were at within their growth process. And when you have companies being invested in, they would either stay in Orange County, but a lot of times they wouldn't choose Irvine as the place to be.
Oh.
So they would go elsewhere. They would get funding and they would either move on. The idea would be incubated in Irvine, or it would start in Irvine, it would seed in Irvine, but then it would go elsewhere to be incubated.
Else. Right,
yes.
Right.
And so that was always really frustrating to see. We would have field offices of large companies setting up in Irvine, but not really that
making it their home.
Yeah, that Series A, Series B companies really wouldn't choose Irvine as their place to be, but they were choosing places like Santa Monica.
Why do you think that
other
is?
Places, because I don't think we had an infrastructure to be able to
facilitate
it. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so I wanted to be able to solve that issue and fill that gap, because I see that was happening a lot. We have the talent and we have people saying, like, honestly, I need to get, if I want to get funding, I need to go to San Jose, I need to go to Silicon Valley, I need to go to Austin, I need to go to Boston.
Oh.
But just being familiar with that and being familiar with even some of the challenges, that's what helped me launch Irvine Tech Week, which is, as you know, something that I started.
Right.
And hope that as mayor, I will continue that. If I don't get reelected, if I don't win, then that all the work that we've done for the past couple of years will sort of be out the window, because that was a project that I started and that I hope to expand on.
A lot of people attend that.
Yeah. I mean,
week.
It just shows the gap that we had in terms of, we have a budding ecosystem, but we need to really nurture that and hone in on it and figure out ways that we can improve upon it.
So, Tammy, I noticed you're absolutely everywhere and doing lots of different things. And I noticed you had some type of pet adoption event this weekend. How did that go?
Yes, we had a pet adoption event. It went incredibly well, despite the fact that it was over 100 degrees outside and super hot. A lot of people came out ready to adopt pets. So we were able to successfully adopt, I think, 5 cats and 4 dogs, or the other way around. So 9 animals altogether. We had a lot who came out, and it was really in conjunction with Orange County Animal Care, as well as the Irvine Animal Shelter, and our supervisor, other council members. So it was a really great event.
Oh, that's good to hear, isn't it? That's really nice. So I just wanted to ask you a question, and maybe you can share with our listeners, because you're going to be able to explain it a lot better than I can. A lot of the cities that up here in the north, or in most cities actually, is usually once you're on council, sort of goes through a rotation, and then you may become mayor or mayor pro tem. But that's not the case for Irvine, is it? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, so Irvine mayor is direct elect. So you have to run, there's about 4 cities in Orange County that are direct elect mayors, in Irvine, Anaheim, Santa Ana, and I believe Garden Grove.
Garden Grove, yeah.
Yeah, are direct elect. So it is not rotational. I am running for actual mayor. My term is up. I was elected in 2020, and my term ends in 24. So instead of running for council again, I made the decision to run for mayor.
And that's a big decision to make, because if you're not elected, you don't get the chance of being on council, right?
That's true, because of the fact that when I was elected in 2020, and I had mentioned I ran against 14 candidates, we had an at-large system. So that means any candidate from anywhere in Irvine could run for all of the 2-3 spots that were available that particular year. This time, it is different. We've broken out into districts. So we had a 5-person council. We have a 5-person council right now, 4 council members and a direct elect mayor. We are now expanding the council, so we will have 6 council members and a mayor. Oh. But we are now broken out into districts in Irvine.
That's a big district, isn't it? But
yes.
What is it? 133,000 people or so in
so Irvine has a population of 320,000.
That's right, 320.
Yes, we have a population. The voting population is about 163,000 of voting population.
Now, what motivated you to run for mayor rather than back on council again?
Why I decided to run for mayor is because I've been bringing forth a lot of the creative ideas that we have in Irvine. Mm-hmm. I've been, pushing the city forward. I have been making sure that we do innovative things like Irvine Tech Week. I've been making sure that we come up with creative solutions to our housing problem and our housing crisis. I've been able to successfully push the Great Park forward. As many may or may not know, just real quickly, the Great Park for the longest time was not being developed. Nothing was happening. It spent over 2 decades of mismanagement, wasteful overspending, and all it has become is a series of sports fields, right, as opposed to the vision that residents had expected it to be. We still have buildings, or had buildings, that were still left there from before World War II, right, and nothing had been done. I was able to push the building of the Great Park forward and really turning that into the destination that it was meant to be. So we approved, since being elected, a $1.5 billion development framework that will turn really the Great Park into a destination, I suppose, right? Yes, right. Not only for Irvine residents to enjoy and the residents to enjoy, but all across the county, that will be, that will bring in revenue.
Are we going to be having concerts out there?
We are going to be having concerts. We have a temporary amphitheater as we are building out a permanent amphitheater. So we're building out a permanent amphitheater. We are building a botanical garden. We are now going to build a series of museums with a variety of different partners, nonprofit partners. And we will have the library, our new central library will be based out of there.
Oh, wow.
And
it's going to be a very big built-up area.
Yeah,
then,
it's going to be
isn't
it's going to be a very built-up area where it's really just been empty, like lying empty. It's going to be, a thriving hub that it was always meant to be.
Another revenue for the city. And
Exactly. And so it's because of all of these things that I was able to do as a council member, probably more so than any other freshman council member in the history of Irvine, which is why I decided that I would be best suited for mayor. And I think that is pretty evident in the support that I've been able to garner.
Now, my memory might serve me incorrectly here, I don't quite remember, but there's lots of things that you read in the Orange County Register or whatever. Weren't you one of the main council members who were for the Veterans Memorial Park area out there? Or
so what happened was, for decades, there was a fight between where a veteran cemetery should go.
Okay.
That was prior to my being on the council. And my opponent ran on the basis of bringing the veteran cemetery in Irvine, despite the opposition of residents. So residents did not want it in Irvine, or in that neighborhood,
space, right.
Within the Great Park. And so that was a lot of debate back and forth, again, prior to my being on the council. When I was elected to the Irvine City Council, the veterans groups, Fowler, wanted it to be in Gypsum Canyon in Anaheim. And so it was already Anaheim, Gypsum Canyon, where the Anaheim Hills area is, was already designated by the County of Orange to be what's called a cemetery district. And so the Board of Supervisors, along with the veterans groups, decided that that is where they wanted to make the veterans cemetery. And what happened was they were able to rally and champion the idea of getting a veteran cemetery in Anaheim Hills. So there was a resolution that every city in the County of Orange made a resolution supporting Gypsum Canyon as a place for the new Veterans Memorial.
Memorial, okay.
And that was approved by all 30, at the time, every council member in all 33 cities.
Wow.
Including Fullerton, Buena Park, La Habra, every single city Board of Supervisors to make it in Gypsum Canyon. The last was in Irvine. So I introduced the item, the resolution, to have it also to support all the other cities. And the city council approved it with the exception of one. So we have one council member in all of Orange County
wow.
who said no. Because he wanted it in the Great Park.
Oh, I see. But then the residents didn't, so what are you going to do there?
The residents didn't,
Right.
And so it was, so basically the dispute was settled, and it is now going into Gypsum Canyon, but he's still running on a platform of trying to bring it back into Irvine, into the Great Park.
Well, so that's a big fight, that, because you're facing an awful lot of cities. So I don't know what you're going to do
and
there.
so I think we're good. And so, but being able to make that decisive decision to move it forward, it just was a demonstration of the leadership that I've been able to demonstrate since being elected. So.
Totally can agree with that. You can see that. Now, you mentioned a little bit before about being an advocate for the housing and affordability and things like that. Would you like to share a little bit about what you've been doing regarding that?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really proud to really help. Unlike unlike Fullerton or Buena Park and other cities here in North County, Irvine is a little bit unusual because we only have like 2 major developers. As a matter of fact, the developer came before the city.
Yes.
And then even to top it off, the developer was the one that gave land to the city to make it a city. So we have a very unusual history within the city of Irvine, and in working with the Irvine company. And really, one of the things that we're dealing with right now is, how do we protect our open space that we have in Irvine while being able to provide affordable housing and workforce housing, and some of the and not impacting traffic and not impacting residents. And one of the ideas that we have is around concepts such as mixed use housing.
Okay.
The Irvine company was never a fan of mixed use, nor was the Irvine City Council. No one had ever brought it up. And when I was elected, I had a meeting with the Irvine company and I said, we need to start exploring mixed use. And they said, well, no one's ever brought it up. This is the first time we've ever heard about it from a council member, and we don't have any interest in doing it. And I said, I think we need to start being bold. We need to start being creative. And so for the first time in Irvine Company's history, they actually developed a department specifically focused on mixed use.
Wow. So
they created this department internally, and they explored the concept of mixed use. And that is what they did. Not only that, but I also talked about, because at the time we were suffering from COVID, where you had underperforming retail, where you had underperforming office space. And I talked to them about turning some of that into housing. And because the will was there from the city council, it prompted them to really look and explore that as an option.
And for those who are listening who aren't, or even watching, not quite sure what mixed use means, do you mind just sharing what it is?
Yes. So mixed use housing is when you have housing and elements of business and retail all combined into one, sort of wrapped into one. And really what that does is that really eliminates and alleviates a lot of the traffic concerns that you have from going from point A to point B. So when you live and you work and you shop sort of in that same general area, that is the concept and that's the idea around mixed use.
Well, really, Irvine companies sort of almost have done that in some of the developments, because they've got apartments and then you've got all the shops underneath. So I mean, there's sort of...
Yeah, but it was always within a drivable. So Irvine Company had what was called the village concept.
Right.
And so the village concept was, there were little shopping centers in the same place where there's a school and there was housing.
Right.
But it was really based on the paradigm of single family housing, number one. It was based on a paradigm of you work somewhere else though, which then still required this really driving element.
Right, I see. And you're trying to cut that down.
And we're trying to cut that down by saying, you know what, we're also going to have workplaces as well.
Okay.
Places to work and live simultaneously, sort of wrapped up into one.
So sorry, I was going to say, so I suppose it makes sense a little bit because you're on the Orange County Power Authority board, isn't that right?
I am.
So it would make sense where you have a little bit more of an idea about conservation and maybe not everybody driving around in the gas guzzlers. Is that part of the...
I mean, that's part of it, is also, just making sure that when we think about how do you live sustainably, and realizing that the paradigm of the 1960s and 1970s is no longer a sustainable paradigm. And so how do you change that up? How do you switch that up? Because, the original master plan, which is everyone gets a single family home and everyone gets this and that, no longer, it's not, we've realized in California, that's no longer a sustainable model.
When was that model sort of written?
That was really built up in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s is when the original master plan was developed that said, we're going to split off into these villages and we're all going to get a home. And I think even California was built up with, with highways and,
it was all blocked out. Or, like you say, everybody had a home. That's why we're all in blocks.
Everyone had
squares,
a home and a car,
right, yeah.
and everyone was going to ride on the highways.
Right.
Realizing that is overwhelmingly unsustainable now in 2024.
That makes sense.
So, when California, I think, was built out in the heyday, it was really built out to be this highway heaven, very automobile centric. And that is just no longer sustainable. I think, when you talk about water, when you talk about infrastructure, when you talk about electricity, all of that is just not sustainable in California.
Right. So given the diverse population that are in Irvine, and you'd mentioned earlier about, being forward there for people who don't quite speak American or what have you. What types of initiatives have you been putting forward for that?
Yeah, so I was really proud of the fact that I've really made language access a prime focal thing that I've embedded it into the culture of our city.
Okay.
Because I think for a long time it was very English only. And believe it or not, we have like 56 languages or some crazy amount of languages. It is a big number, I remember, being spoken within the city of Irvine. But we have what we call like legal threshold languages, which is Spanish, Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese within the city of Irvine. But we also have a very large Farsi community and Vietnamese. I think I might have said that.
You said Vietnamese, yeah.
I did say Vietnamese, but yes, a Farsi, Persian language within Irvine, and so it's really critical that we be able to reach out to a lot of these residents. So when I was elected, we were giving because Irvine was large enough, we got ARPA funds, COVID relief funds directly to the city. So from the state. So we didn't have to go through the county as an intermediary. We were able to receive a lot of the funding directly because we were over 250,000. And so a lot of the cities, it might be English, it might be Spanish. For example, those are the main languages, but we needed to reach out to a vast array of people. So I ensure that things like our rental relief assistance program and our small business relief program was also communicated in various languages.
Oh, so it's available for everybody who speaks these different types of languages. Okay.
Yes, so we made sure that it at minimum included the legal threshold languages. And as a result, when we did our second batch of rental relief funding, the first batch was before I got elected. The second batch of funding was after I got elected. We opened it in multiple languages. We had 180 applicants in Farsi alone.
Wow.
These are people that would have otherwise
missed out,
not been served because they didn't know about it or they didn't know how to access it. And we had a lot in Chinese and Spanish, but it was Farsi was the number one language that we were reaching out to.
Right.
And so it just shows the need that exists. And when you open up city services to other communities are able to access what the city has available and the tools and the resources that we do have.
Now, I briefly mentioned earlier that you reside on many different boards, one of them being Orange County Power Authority, but you're also on the Orange County Fire Authority.
Yes.
And considering right now we've got fires everywhere, you want to share a little bit about what you've been doing regarding all that?
So there's, I've been making sure that I'm communicating with residents. I'm briefing with the fire authority. They've had a couple of press events, and I haven't been able to attend because I had city council meetings all at the same time, but making sure that we're communicating with our residents. The good news is that it's moved away from Orange County and it's moving towards Riverside. Not that that's a good thing, but we're trying to keep our residents safe, and I ensured that that Irvine played a role by being a command center for the fire.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, in the Great Park.
Now, keeping on public safety there, obviously, yes, you know, the threats of the wildfire and such. I have personally noticed that there has been a slight uptick in raising crime rates in the city, and of course the increasing use of almost getting run over by electric bikes in the parks is a big one. Moving forward, if you're elected mayor, is there anything you're thinking of maybe helping out the residents regarding those matters?
No, absolutely. So we have already been working and instituting policies to the e-bikes. That's the big thing. You know, a lot of things were happening on a global basis that were affecting Irvine residents, and people wanted, you know, the city council to do things about it. And people said, well, you know, Irvine residents care about international issues. And I said, they actually care about e-bikes. That's for one complaint I received from Irvine residents is the massive e-bikes. And we are working on a variety of different remediation measures to combat I'm going to call it the misuse of e-bikes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to, is because the laws haven't quite kept up with the technology.
Sure.
And the problem is the technology is moving faster than
policies can be written. Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of what we're hampered with is that there were a lot of state policies that were written that treated e-bikes on this at the same level as
bicycles, right.
And so whatever laws were instituted for bikes, e-bikes had to be treated the same way. The problem is that e-bikes are completely different. E-bikes are basically, the technology is there that they are mopeds and motorcycles at this point. And so we're trying to peel back and work on peeling back a lot of the laws that treated e-bikes the same as bikes. That's number one. Number two is keeping up with the ordinances, keeping the ordinances up to date. We're trying not to criminalize children.
So
we're balancing.
It's a fine line.
So we're balancing all of that. So who do you hold responsible at the end of the day when your child has rigged an e-bike to turn them into a moped?
Sure, right.
And who's at fault? And how do we, when you've got kids that are, you know, still developing their frontal cortex and they're gaggles of children on e-bikes, and how do you protect that, and how do you protect our residents and protect the children without creating a prison, you know, school to prison pipeline, and balancing all of that?
It's a lot. If you think, you know, if a kid's re-rigging their bicycle to, as you say, be more of a moped, you don't want to necessarily also just say, hey, you're doing the wrong thing, because they might be one of the new inventors that invent something in Irvine.
It's even that, and it's balancing all of that, and it's making sure that we've got the ordinances in place. And, you know, we're also thinking about just, we always want to be careful that at the end of the day, you can get sued by the state for various things.
Sure.
But it has come to a point, at least for me personally, let the state sue us.
Well, but believe it or not, we get a lot of calls at the chamber regarding people wanting to know what they're going to do about the e-bikes. You know,
it is a big thing, because, you know, do the shopping centers set up security to handle a gaggle of e-bikers that are zipping through their station? We talk about, well, you know, establishing bike lanes, and then you've got the analog cyclist groups that are saying, well, we don't want to share bike lanes with an e-biker. And then you have legitimate e-bikers who are like, but we need the e-bike for transportation.
Sure.
And we've got a transportation issue. So it's a quagmire of different things in different interests that we're trying to really sort through, because it is a viable mode of transportation. And that is true. And we have parents who say they need their child to go to school on an e-bike because that is the only way they can get to school.
Well, it's almost like back in the day, I remember from films, because I haven't lived here too long, but skateboarding was the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So they just banned it from everywhere, didn't they? And that's not what you want to do. You want to try and find that middle ground.
Yeah, and so it is a middle ground because it does have viable applications and real applications that are for good. So how do we balance it to where it can be used for good, but that it isn't abused? Right. So things such as, and this kind of goes with the public safety, is we need to set up more security cameras to help us with a lot of this, because right now we don't have enough security cameras in public places that we need security cameras. Investing in drone technology that can help sort of manage and monitor some of this, because our police officers aren't equipped to just sit there and ticket gaggles of e-biking children.
Right. So you just mentioned then, I'm glad you mentioned the police department. So what other measures do you see coming forward, or changes you might want to try and push forward as the mayor regarding the police department, and whether they need more resources or things like that?
Well, they do need more resources. I mean, they're always needing resources, and making sure that we keep up with our population growth, and also providing them with the tools they need to do their jobs. And a lot of the tools that they need are, the latest in technology that will help, for example, crack down on the misuse of e-bikes, which, e-bikes on trails, for example. I mean, do we utilize police officers to do that? Or do we use technology that can help sort of mitigate some of that, like drone technology that can look for e-biking gangs on trails that they're not supposed to be in? So these are sort of the things that I'm thinking about. How do we leverage technology to be our friend? Obviously, they're not going to replace police officers, but they can take some of the
load off.
The load off, the load bearing, so that way our police officers are working on things that really can have a high return on investments, like making sure that we don't have rampant retail theft. And making sure that they can respond quickly to crime rings that may come up in Irvine,
or emergencies or what have
you.
Right.
Exactly.
So on that note, obviously there has been a bit of an intick of crime. Is this the times we're in? It's because the city's so accessible with all the different freeways. What do you think is?
So
is it easy pickings?
It's not. Actually, truth be told, there's actually a decrease in criminal activity in Irvine. But there's been an increase in the communication that's out. So that makes it appear that there is an uptick. It's because we are trying to engage our residents more in helping solve crime. Right. We want so it's balancing, do we inform residents that this is happening? Because we actually want to send a message to criminals saying, if you come to Irvine, we will put full resources, we will invest, and we will catch you. And that is actually what we're doing.
So it's like a big neighborhood watch type of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge neighborhood on social media, but it makes it look like there's
loads
increase
going on.
Yeah, but there's actually a decrease, but we're trying to let people know we're not in our city.
Well, that's good to know. I'm glad you shared that.
Yes.
So everybody now knows that
Yes.
there's not an increase.
There's not an
It's
increase.
just you being more communicative, and of course it's more like a huge neighborhood watch program.
Yes, but we do need to maintain our vigilance because we do not want to be easy picking.
Sure.
And that is, sometimes what happens is you do have a crime of opportunity where you have the true people, like just passerbyers saying, "Oh, this car is open, let's take
Sure.
it." And so we want to make sure that we are not opportunistic, or we're not putting ourselves to be in opportunistic situations, but we do, it is real for the people that are living on hillsides, for example, in the Turtle Rock area that I think you're familiar with, that there is an increase in that area, because it is wide open. You've got gangs of people. So it does feel like, as a city as a whole, because there are pockets where it is increasing, and some of those, that is where we need to leverage technology more, that we cannot cover a lot of the ground area with just having a few police officers.
Right.
We need a more robust ground game.
Now, on that point, because everything costs money, doesn't it? What do you see in the future of how the city's going to maintain its revenue? One of them, were you talking about Great Park? Are there any ideas that you have?
Yes, really, right now, and I take nothing for granted. So the three main sources of revenue for Irvine is, number one, property tax, number two, retail sort of revenue, sales tax revenue, and number three is TOT, transient occupancy tax, which is the hotels.
Right.
So those are the three, and all of them are, it's an embarrassment of riches, but it's all very healthy right now. And my job is to make sure that it becomes and continues to stay healthy, which means that we're creating jobs, that we are bringing employers, that we are bringing an increase in sales tax revenue, that we are having a welcome place to do business. We don't charge sales tax we don't charge additional taxes for businesses to come in.
Right. Because you want to invite them in.
We want to invite them in, and we have been inviting them in, and a lot of people want to do business, and I want to encourage businesses to come in to say, listen, Irvine is a great place to do business because we're super easy to do business in.
Right.
And want to continue that. Our tax base is growing from that perspective, and I want to have it be a place where we've got like 14 different hotels, and I want to grow that as well.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Why do you think we need so many hotels in the city? Is it because it's a landing spot for all these businesses to grow in the first place, or?
It's you've got a combination of business travelers, which is a huge draw. You also have competition. So we've got soccer, we've got a bunch of sports fields, we've got a lot of competitive sports, athletic related things, even robotics. We've got visiting scholars. We've got a lot of activity where people are coming into Irvine, and we have conferences that are coming into Irvine, where we have a lot of hotel needs, and I want to grow that.
Right.
I mean, it's hopefully also grab some of the tourists that are coming in from different parts that want to see different parts of
Orange County,
like Newport Beach,
stay in
Irvine.
just down the road. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So one thing that we actually haven't touched on really is, people are going to be asking, why is North Orange County Chamber of Commerce interviewing a council member, Tammy Kim, who's down in Irvine? So would you like to share a little bit about how we're all affiliated in somewhat way?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the work I do, especially for the Korean community and the Korean American Chamber, and promoting that and promoting the work that they're doing, really expands well beyond Irvine. I
Yeah.
think this is a real regional approach. And last year in 2023, we had the World Korean Business Convention here in Orange County that we all worked very closely with. I know then Mayor and Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Fred Young, was very involved in. I was involved in. Joyce On in Buena Park was very involved in. And this really was a concerted effort to bring focus here to Orange County. So sometimes we work together to really expand the region as a whole, because whether it is Irvine, whether it's Fullerton, whether it's Buena Park, people want to come and do business in Orange County.
Right.
Now, yes, I have a bias for Irvine, of course.
Yeah.
And my interest is to look after Irvine and look after our residents. But, you know, there are businesses and there's opportunities where there's companies, they can set up shop in all of the cities.
That's right.
And there are regional places, there are restaurants, that there are customers everywhere. And so, and that is what we're finding a lot. We're finding restaurants that have an Irvine location and have
another city or whatever,
Fullerton
right?
location, because it is that vast and there's opportunities everywhere. We have huge populations in all of these cities. And so a lot of times when they're looking at when they're looking at where do they go in Southern California, we are basically talking them into why they need to come to Orange County, because they may be looking at LA.
Yeah.
So, you know, Fred Jung, Joyce On, myself, we are convincing these organizations, these companies, that no, you don't want to go to LA County, you want to come to Orange County. There is market here. There is rich market. And so sometimes it's bringing it here together. If Irvine is the best place, if Fullerton is the best place, but it is coming here first, setting your first location in Buena Park, and then your second in Irvine.
Right.
Putting your first location in Irvine, and then your second in Fullerton.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tag teaming that has to happen, but we're working very smartly to bring business and bring revenue in to Orange County, because it benefits all of us at the end of the day.
And it's a large area, is Orange County. So there's a big workforce area there. Plenty of universities, like it's rich, isn't it, really, with wealth of all that type of stuff.
It is, because again, we look out for our own respective cities, but a lot of times when we're bringing in investment from overseas or from elsewhere, we really have to go at it from a regional approach. And we really go at it from that perspective, and we lock it in. And we try to bring innovative business into Orange County. And if it starts off in Fullerton, I'm happy, because it'll eventually come to Irvine.
Sure.
Or vice versa. So
it's very true that's how our chamber works, is basically with our members, they're from all over. And it's okay to be all over, because we all need to be together, help each other, collaborate one way or another, and the area gets wealthy.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
Absolutely. So, you know, I've seen North Orange County Chamber. You've seen me around in North County, because whether it's I'm helping to open up the Koreatown, that
celebrating
is in Buena Park.
Businesses. Remember that huge water thing they did down in Fullerton there? That was a big deal.
So celebrating businesses in Fullerton, and you know, the opening of the Sungnam Center in Fullerton, a new business at the Source. I mean, we're all like interconnected.
What's downtown Korea now? Is there something?
The Koreatown in Buena Park. The Koreatown designation. And so, you know, I'm really happy to celebrate all of that, because that is regional investment. And a lot of times, you know, these are my residents. These are Irvine residents that might be setting up a business here, or setting up a business in Fullerton, or Fullerton resident setting up a business in Irvine. Yeah,
that makes total sense.
So we are very much interconnected, because we have the largest Asian American populations in all of Orange County.
Right.
So
that's very true. So we always come to this side of the episode where we give our guests the the opportunity to share what they'd like to share, because we've asked loads of questions. We might have missed something, might even be just a message you want to share with listeners, and of course, because it's going to be video, is viewers. So this is your time. Anything you'd like to share?
I just am really happy about the enthusiasm that our campaign has received as we're running for mayor. There's a reason why Irvine police, firefighters, working families, elected officials have endorsed us to be the next mayor of Irvine, because we really bring a forward-thinking approach to the city of Irvine. They love all the things that we've done thus far, and they want to see us continue as the mayor for Irvine. So hopefully, if they've got anyone has any questions, they can visit our website at tammykim.com, and I am very accessible. I think I respond to emails, to podcast requests, interviews, so I'm happy to be there for anyone who has any questions.
Well, thank you so very much for coming on today, Tammy. We really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are listening or watching, if you'd like to learn more, please visit chambertalk.podbean.com. And until next time, stay inspired and stay connected. Thank you.